There comes a moment in every man's life when the fire begins to dim. The same woman who once unraveled his thoughts, stirred his blood, and pulled his attention like gravity now barely moves the needle of his soul. Her touch, once electric, now feels like ritual. He finds himself pulling away, not because of resentment, not because another woman has stolen his gaze, but because something far deeper, far more terrifying has happened. He has seen through the illusion. Arthur Schopenhauer, philosopher of brutal clarity, saw it before most even dared to ask the question. He warned us, what we call passion is not the poetry of the heart, but the strategy of biology. What we dress up in music, romance, and longing is not a spiritual union, but a trap, a compulsion, not for joy, but for reproduction. For nature does not prioritize your happiness, it prioritizes your genes, the great love stories, the aching desire, the infatuation that blinds. These are not accidents, they are design. And once nature either gets what it wants or recognizes it cannot win through this specific bond, it pulls back the veil. The hunger vanishes, the madness lifts, and all that's left is the quiet emptiness you mistake for something broken in yourself. But nothing is broken. You are not malfunctioning. You are awakening. The podcast you listened to only confirms what Schopenhauer knew long before. Men are not the insatiable creatures society paints them to be. That myth of endless masculine hunger, it's a fantasy. The drive is not infinite. It's selective. It burns in the presence of mystery, of novelty, of distance. But in the presence of routine, domesticity, overexposure, it dies, quietly, silently, without protest. Cohabitation, as modernity demands it, strangles the very tension it depends on. We believe living together is romantic, sharing every detail of life, merging completely. But Schopenhauer would laugh. He would say, "You have placed a sacred instinct under fluorescent lights. You have dissected the dream, and you are surprised it no longer sings. Desire cannot survive overexposure. This is not pessimism, it's biology." This is the Westermarck effect, an observed phenomenon where individuals raised in close proximity, like siblings, develop a subconscious aversion to one another as sexual partners. It's not that they resist temptation, they feel none. Familiarity, instead of breeding intimacy, breeds repulsion. Apply that to modern love, to long-term couples living under one roof, seeing each other every day, hearing every complaint, sharing every chore. The mystery evaporates. The polarity dissolves. The rituals become mechanical. The deeper nature within him begins to whisper, "This is no longer what we seek." Because the drive, the will, is not concerned with this moment or this individual. It is concerned with the species, with future generations. And once its work is done, or it realizes this path will not produce its intended result, it steps back. Not in malice, but in design. You are not losing your appetite for love. You are outgrowing your programming. This is the truth no therapist tells you. No self-help book dares whisper. But Schopenhauer gives you something they won't, the dignity of your disillusionment. He says plainly, the fading of your desire is not a malfunction. It is a message. You are free now, if you dare to be. Freedom is rarely glamorous. It does not announce itself with music and celebration. Often, it feels like apathy, like detachment, like the death of a fire you once thought defined you. But this is not death, it is clarity. The sexual impulse, Schopenhauer wrote, is the most violent of cravings. It seizes the mind, overthrows the will, consumes the soul like madness. So what happens when the madness lifts? You don't collapse. You see. You see through the golden haze, through the enchantment. And you don't hate her, you simply recognize her. Not as an angel, not as a goddess, not as your destiny, but as human. Familiar. Finite. The fire that once kept you awake at night now flickers weakly, and still you may care. You may feel loyalty, respect, even tenderness. But the hunger is gone, not because you are cold, but because you are finally sober. The lover believes he is chasing something personal, but in truth, he is serving a purpose far older than himself, a biological mechanism cloaked in poetry. And when that mechanism no longer requires his service, the passion dissipates, like smoke, like a spell broken, and he's left wondering what happened to him. This is the betrayal most men never see, that their deepest longings, their sleepless obsessions, their desperate confessions were never entirely theirs. They were part of a ritual, a system, a design aimed not at fulfillment, but continuity. And when that continuity is no longer required, the ritual becomes stale, unbearable. Modern relationships accelerate this collapse. By design, they force closeness, merge identities, share schedules, share space, share vulnerabilities, all of which are presented as deepening love, but which in truth erode tension, the tension on which attraction depends. As the podcast notes, this isn't about romance dying because love faded. It's about desire vanishing because mystery did. When a man sees every side of her, every habit, every breakdown, every irritation, when he lives in emotional proximity day after day, she becomes familiar, safe. And this familiarity, ironically, kills the very spark that first drew him. She becomes emotionally closer, but physically less compelling. And society has no name for this shift. So it calls him lazy, immature, cold. It tells him he is broken for no longer craving what once consumed him. But Schopenhauer knew better. The will to life, the impulse that fuels desire, does not care about your relationship, your marriage, or your feelings. It cares only about propagation. And once that is achieved or abandoned, it leaves. What you feel as emptiness is not failure. It is the echo of a completed mission. Nature does not serve you. It uses you, and then it abandons you. Men must come to terms with this. You are not broken because you've stopped desiring her. You're not deficient because your fire has cooled. You are not a traitor to manhood because you are no longer hypnotized. You are awakening from the illusion. Nature has retrieved its leash. You have a choice now, to keep pretending the fire is still lit, or to accept what few are willing to say out loud, that desire is not infinite. It is conditional, circumstantial, and deeply tied to the unknown. What men mistake for love is often captivity. What they chase is often illusion. And when the illusion fades, they are left staring at someone they once worshipped, feeling only the dull ache of reality. And it is not her fault. It is not his either. It is the design itself. Marriage, in Schopenhauer's words, is the trap nature sets to deceive the individual for the sake of the species. And when the trap is sprung, when the papers are signed, the routines established, the masks dropped, desire quietly slips out the back door. Some men try to chase it. They start affairs, seek novelty, indulge in fantasy. But nothing works for long, because the misunderstanding remains that fading interest is a problem to be fixed rather than a signal to be understood. You see, the masculine drive thrives not in possession, but in pursuit, in risk, in potential. Once that energy is secured, domesticated, normalized, what's left to chase? The fire doesn't vanish. It just turns elsewhere. This is where Schopenhauer offers a path, not of indulgence, but of transcendence. He doesn't advise men to numb themselves or escape into pleasure. He points toward clarity, toward discipline, toward the renunciation of delusion. For him, the man who outgrows his desire is not less of a man. He is more. He is reclaiming what nature borrowed, his agency. And this path is lonely, because no one speaks of it, because the world still measures masculinity by hunger, by conquest, by proof of virility. But what if true masculinity lies in restraint, in sovereignty, in the refusal to be led by impulse? What if losing interest is not collapse, but evolution? More and more men are beginning to feel it. This quiet shift, a soft, strange withdrawal from the very desires that once ruled them. They panic, then they grieve. And if they are wise, they begin to understand. They are not losing manhood. They are shedding delusion. They are stepping out of the trance. Schopenhauer did not write to soothe. He wrote to awaken. And in his most lucid insights, he showed us that true liberation comes not through the next thrill, but through the outgrowing of thrill itself. Through the sobering realization that what you once thought was your soul crying out for connection was often your biology demanding reproduction. Every man takes the limits of his own field of vision for the limits of the world. But when that vision expands, when the veil lifts, when the cravings vanish, he sees clearly. He sees that what he called intimacy was dependency, what he called chemistry was instinct, and what he called love might have been addiction. And in that moment of clarity, he does not find despair. He finds space. Space to think, space to create, space to stop playing a game he was never told was a game. Now consider again the role of routine, of familiarity, of transparency. When two people live together long enough, with no boundaries, no tension, no polarity, what emerges is not passion, it is siblinghood. And nothing suffocates desire more thoroughly than the comfort of sameness. This is not a failing. It is biology obeying itself. So when men begin to pull away, to lose interest, to feel the fire fade, they are not betraying love. They are responding to truth. The will has withdrawn. The spell is broken. And what remains is the shell of the obsession, still warm, still familiar, but hollow. And if he clings to it, he decays. But if he lets go, if he dares to walk away, he enters a realm no one teaches men to navigate. Peace. Peace is not dramatic. It is not cinematic. It does not thrill. It does not seduce. But it is real. And it is what awaits the man who no longer mistakes craving for truth. The world will call him cold, detached, numb. But in truth, he has simply stopped dancing for the fire. He has seen through the seduction. A man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills. You cannot force desire where none exists. You cannot reignite a fire that never truly belonged to you. It belonged to nature. And now, nature has moved on. What remains is not failure, but freedom. And though that freedom may feel like silence, that silence is not the absence of meaning. It is the beginning of it. Schopenhauer pointed toward asceticism not as a punishment, but as a declaration. I will no longer be ruled by the chase. I will step back. I will see clearly. I will live free. Men, hear this. Your fading desire does not mean you are broken. It means you are awake. You have crossed the threshold. You have lived enough, seen enough, loved enough to recognize the pattern. And now, you choose. Chase the fire that once deceived you, or step into the stillness and own your mind. This is the real initiation. Not your first kiss, not your first conquest, not even your wedding, but the moment you look at what once captivated you and say, not with anger, but with understanding, "It no longer moves me." Not because you are dead inside, but because you have evolved. You no longer need the illusion. You've outgrown the game. And if you've come this far, if these words settle into your bones like truth, then tell another man. Help him wake up. Let him know he's not alone. He's not failing. He's becoming free. Because this freedom, this strange, quiet liberation, is not something the world understands. The world glorifies craving. It sells you passion like a product. It defines you by how much you want, how often you chase, how loudly you burn. But no one tells you what it means to let go of the need to burn. To look into the face of your old longing and not feel haunted, but released. You've spent your youth believing desire defined you. That to want was to be alive. That longing gave your life its shape. But now the craving fades. The drama dies down. And in the absence of desire, you do not disappear. You emerge. You are still here, breathing, thinking, watching. The silence is not a void. It's a space where something real can finally grow. So many men never reach this space. They fight it. They mourn the dying fire. They chase ghosts. They assume something went wrong, that their testosterone dropped, their edge dulled, their hunger betrayed them. But what if none of that is true? What if this is exactly what's supposed to happen? What if evolution doesn't just happen to the body, but to the mind? What if men aren't meant to stay enthralled by the same tricks forever? What if growing up means not just paying bills and raising children, but stepping outside the cage of chemical slavery? Schopenhauer wasn't bitter. He was honest. And in his honesty, he offered a road few dare walk, a road beyond craving, beyond fantasy, beyond obsession. He saw the machinery, the instincts, the lies dressed as romance, and he didn't curse them. He simply refused to be ruled by them. So must you. The world will not celebrate your awakening. It will miss your old hunger. It will try to seduce you again with images, with stories, with shame. It will whisper that you've lost your edge, that you're becoming invisible, that you're wasting your manhood. But these are the cries of a system that only knows how to profit from your confusion. And yet you will feel it, the temptation to go back, to reignite what is already burned out, to chase one more thrill, one more woman, one more high. Not because you believe in it, but because it's easier than sitting in silence. But silence is the teacher. Stillness is the portal. It's in that space, where nothing stirs you, where no one pulls at your instinct, that you begin to think clearly for the first time, not through the lens of desire, not through the lens of, what can I get, but through the lens of, what is true. You begin to remember who you are when you are not ruled by craving. You begin to notice things you missed when your blood was louder than your thoughts. You begin to build, not to impress, not to seduce, but to live rightly. And that is when masculinity becomes something deeper than performance. No longer tied to conquest, no longer driven by impulse, no longer performing the rituals of desire just to feel valid. Your energy, once wasted on endless seeking, now becomes power, focus, discipline, art, purpose. Schopenhauer called this the negation of the will, a quiet rebellion, a turning away from the frantic engine of the species and toward something eternal. He wasn't talking about being cold or lifeless. He was talking about being free. You don't need to stop loving. You don't need to stop feeling. But you must stop worshipping the lie that you are your desire, the lie that to stop craving is to stop living, That lie is the leash, and it has kept men chasing shadows for generations. Now you see it. The trick, the programming, the poetry covering the chains. And you, standing in this stillness, have a choice. You can go back. Pretend you didn't see the truth. Try to revive the illusion. Or you can go forward, into the strange clarity of a life unruled by the fire. It won't be easy. Most won't understand you. You'll be accused of being detached, distant, damaged. But beneath those accusations is fear. The fear that you've stepped outside the cycle they're still trapped in. Let them talk. Let them misunderstand. Because what you've found is not emptiness. It's sovereignty. Not apathy, but peace. And peace, though it may not write songs or sell movies, is the only antidote to illusion. It is the resting place after the war of longing. It is the quiet seat from which truth can finally be seen, not through lust-clouded eyes, but through the eyes of a man who has faced the fire and walked through it. If you're still chasing, you're not free. If you're still seeking to be fulfilled by someone else, you're still asleep. But if you've come to that moment, the one where the old flame flickers out and you no longer fear the dark, that is not your end. That is your arrival. There is no ceremony for this transformation, no ritual to mark it, no words to explain it to those still in the spell. But you'll know, you'll feel it, not as ecstasy, but as quiet strength, not as noise, but as presence. And from that presence, you begin to speak differently, walk differently, create differently. You become less reactive, less enslaved by your biology, less driven by the need to prove anything. You live as one who knows the truth and is no longer ashamed of it. This is your initiation, not into marriage, not into fatherhood, not into success, but into self-possession, into clarity. And once you enter this place, once you understand what Schopenhauer was really saying, you can never fully go back. The illusion may try to return. The world may seduce you with new distractions. But something inside you has shifted forever, and that something will not settle for sleepwalking again. So if these words speak to you, share them. Speak them aloud. Show them to the men you know who are quietly suffering, blaming themselves for a natural transformation. Help them see what no one else will say, that they are not broken. They are becoming free. And freedom, though it may cost you your illusions, is the only thing truly worth having.